Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. What is up, Millionaire Secrets audience, my Entre Nation fellowship out there? Welcome back to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. Your host, Jeff Lerner, with you yet again. And I am riveted by my guest today because, as I was just discussing with him, I've actually been a fan and a customer of his for years. He literally has had a physiological, biomechanical, salvation level impact on my life. He saved my hip from certain destruction. We'll get into how that happened. But Mr. Mark Bell, welcome to Millionaire Secrets. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be on your show today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. The world out there who's in my sphere and my audience knows that I'm really into fitness. I'm about as into fitness as you can be when you're naturally just a very bad athlete, but you just love training and sports. And so it's a real passion of mine. So it's great to have you on the show. I mentioned how you saved me. I've got my Sling Shot right here. I want to dig into all the history and the science of this, but my chiropractor recommended this to me because I was having glute, hip problems, and I'm trying to remember what are the little weird muscles in like your upper butt. It was one of those was too weak, and he said you got to do this Sling Shot, and it's made all the difference. I don't expect
it's great that it helped a lot.
I don't expect.
Yeah, it's great that it's helped a lot. You know,
anatomy of my butt.
I created a lot of the I created a lot of the products to help lower the barrier of entry into fitness, because I think one thing that is a real limiting factor on any motivation that you might have, and I just don't even know. I don't even know if we even think about it that much. But a motivational killer and an inspirational killer is just wasting a lot of energy on stuff. And so something like the hip circle, product you just held up right there, the Sling Shot, which is a supportive upper body device for bench press, push-ups, dips, those things. And we make knee sleeves and elbow sleeves. If I can just put you in a little bit better mood for your workout, how much more efficient is it going to be? And if I can have you have a better workout for the day, what better mood will you be in for the whole day? And so that's my goal. And that's, when I communicate with people, whether I'm doing a seminar or talking on YouTube or something like that, that's all I'm trying to gift people is just feeling better, because people ask about motivation all the time. And I am a believer in motivation, and I like getting doses of motivation here and there. However, I think you're better off looking at it maybe from a slightly different standpoint of just kind of almost like a positive energy type of deal. So if you're supplied with the proper nutrition, if you have proper rest, motivation is just not a factor. Motivation might be a factor like in the summer when it's really hot and you go to walk outside and you're like, oh, but why is that a factor? The factor is because it's uncomfortable. Or you go outside in Minnesota in the middle of the winter and it's freezing outside. It's like, that's going to be a little too uncomfortable to do your exercise. And so that's all I'm ever trying to do is lower that barrier of entry into making things a little bit more comfortable, whether it be diet or whether it be your training.
You're like fitness Prozac, man. Just making everything feel better, right? Yeah, no, it's amazing. And literally, not to geek out on all the weights and strength and stuff, but literally it's this device probably added 40 or 50 pounds to my squat just by using it consistently. So it really works. And I'm curious, actually, what I have a million questions. Like I said, I don't want to, I almost feel like I'm doing a little bit of a fan geek here, which is, it's maybe silly that I'm a fan geek of a hip circle inventor, but no, it really made a positive impact. So here's what's interesting to me about you, you know, superficially as a, you know, viewer from afar is like, and there's a few guys that have done this, but you've taken this passion, this thing that a lot of people get into. You know, there's a lot of people that get into fitness. And I remember even when I started getting into working out and stuff in high school, I remember even once telling my dad, like, you know, Dad, maybe I could be a personal trainer. You know, it was like everything I got into at that time. It was like, oh, maybe I can do that. Maybe that'll be the thing, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I remember my dad actually, he wasn't too positive about it. He's like, you know, personal training is like I mean, it's a hard gig. It's a grind. You know, he kind of explained the economics of it, and you don't really control your clients. You don't really control your money unless you go independent. And then you're always having to worry about a facility. And like, you know, he kind of steered me away from that idea. But within that, what I find is, you know, people that get into fitness and decide they want to make a life out of it, they either end up frankly struggling as like a trainer, which is just hard. It's kind of, I used to be a jazz musician. It's kind of the same type of gig. It's freelance. You never know where your kind of next, you know, your client could quit at any time. And unfortunately, fitness clients do tend to quit pretty often. But some people, they find their niche and they really innovate, create a ton of value. I know people that have started meal prep companies that blew up, and or come up with a technology, or, you know, created an app. And in your case, created I guess it would be I don't know, what do you call it? A device, a mechanical device, or a set of devices. How did you get into that, man? How did you sort of transcend this, you know, the common fitness professional experience and become, you know, an elite creator and value creator in that space?
I really I enjoy working out a lot, and everything that I ever created all started out with, you know, playing around in the gym. Just you know, that's kind of my my kind of testing ground is to just try stuff out and to explore and to play with different concepts and ideas. And so I just always had ideas when it came to fitness, when it came to strength training, because I started when I was 12. I'm 43 now. I competed for 30 years. And in that time frame, things get beat up. You know, I've hurt my elbow before. I tore my tricep. I tore both my biceps. I tore both my pecs. I tore my hamstring. Tore the hip flexor muscle. I mean, I've torn a bunch of stuff. And so I realized that one of the tough things about just life in general, you can kind of make a metaphor transition over into just life in general. Like, one of the tough things is just to endure. It's just to be around for a long time. My mother-in-law, she jokes a lot. She's in her 80s, and she was like, I was never considered a pretty woman. She's like, but I outlasted. She's like, everybody else my age is pretty much dead. So she's like, I've outlasted them. And now here I am, because she's like, I'm just simply not fat. You know, I'm not overweight. I'm not out of shape. And so, you know, men her age, you know, find her attractive. But I think when it can be true of fitness in general, and it could be true of strength training, or true of just learning, maybe owning your own business and being successful with it one day. Like, I think everyone's not everyone, but I think for the most part, people are always striving, you know, for the stars, and they're just like trying so hard to be the best, or be in the best shape, or make, you know, $1 million or whatever it might be. And I think they're missing out on the fact that would be cool if you made $1 million, but there's also nothing wrong with making $70K for 5 years and working your way up the ladder and making 90 and making 120, and then one day have it hitting you, you know, square between the eyeballs, that you have that kind of lands you into something bigger and different. So That's some of the stuff I noticed is like the main thing, for me was always, how can I do this for a long time? Because if I could just do this for a long time, I can be awesome at it. And it allowed me, because I was able to lift for so long. I was stronger than most of my friends when I started. But because I was able to hang in there, I was able to beat a lot of people later on that were kicking my ass, but I just outlasted them. I ended up squatting 1,080, bench pressing 854 pounds, and deadlifting 766 pounds. The people that I passed, the only thing that was a limiting factor for most of those people, because like I said, they were already better than me when I came into the game, it was simply just time. So whatever it is that you're working on right now, that you're like, man, I just suck at this. I can't make any money. I can't figure this out. I know it's cliche, but you have to just try to figure out a way to keep plugging away. And maybe what you could do is you could work on your living as you're working towards your fortune, as you're working more towards your hopes and dreams.
Yeah, we live in a society now that's not super keen on delayed gratification. And, I love fitness. I use a lot of gym metaphors. I use a lot of workout metaphors, and it's particularly heavy lifting metaphors. I mean, our core value, our number one core value at my company is we eagerly do hard things well. And I have a routine myself. It's legs day Sunday. I just go lift heavy legs every Sunday. And that's actually the pinnacle moment of my week, because I figure, look, on Sunday morning, I'm doing the hardest thing that I could possibly do the entire week.
I want to dive into this a little bit more, Eric. So
yeah,
you're eagerly doing things that are hard, kind of basically
eagerly doing hard things well. So it's actually 3 statements. We do hard things, we do them well, and we're eager to do them.
So I love that, because what I've been communicating to a lot of folks as well comes from maybe a different perspective or different side of things. And it's this notion of hard is simply just a perspective. It's just a point of view, So at the moment, you're going to think something new or something a little bit more challenging than last week is going to be hard. But by definition, all work is always going to have its difficulty. It's always going to have its challenge to it. So the way that I like to look at a lot of things, I agree with you 100% on, like, let's dive into the things that are hard because we know the reward that we're going to get. But I think maybe what people are missing out on a little bit is that these things won't be that hard to you. They'll be difficult, but they're not going to be that hard, because with every step forward that you take, you'll be that much closer to getting the next thing done. So while you may be doing stuff that's hard, it's probably not so uncomfortable that it's completely ridiculous. Is that about right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you need to press hard enough for adaptive stress, but you don't want to set yourself back.
Yep. 100%. And I think sometimes I think people might be missing that, and that's maybe what discourages them from getting started in the first place. Or they maybe do try and they go so hard, they're like, I don't have the energy to even to even attempt that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Hard is, it's a semantic. I mean, that's the choice of term. But first of all, if you're eager to do something, that diffuses a lot of the hardness of it. Enthusiasm is an antidote to suffering. And also, if you do it well, the idea of eagerly doing a hard thing well means doing it consistently and, with repetition to where it actually does get easier. And then
doing something well makes you feel great about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you know that it was actually a hard thing that you did.
Right.
That's the greatest feeling on earth. And I love that you're talking about, taking this sort of long game approach, just outlasting, in a way, I feel like that's my career. I started entrepreneuring when I was 16 years old because I just knew I was never going to be cut out to work a corporate job. And I failed. I had 0 successes. It wasn't like kind of up, kind of down. It was just down and then flat plus slightly more down for 12 years of just shit. I was a jazz piano player, so I barely paid my bills doing that. But that meant that, that's a nights and weekends vocation. So I had my days free to fail at business over and over and over and over. But like your beautiful grandmother, by the time I was in my late 20s, I wasn't the best entrepreneur. I was just the one that hadn't quit,
I love that. And I think, ultimately you're just trying to prove yourself to yourself. I think we look for these affirmations and these beautiful things that we can say to ourselves. And I'm a huge believer and huge fan of the law of attraction. And I'm a huge believer and huge fan that you should be very positive to yourself. But what I have found out to be true for me, and what I've seen to be true of some others, is that you can't lie to yourself. I think that you can get away with lying to other people for quite some time, and you can probably be quite successful in doing so. I don't know how good you'll feel about yourself in doing that, but I think you can get away with that. But you can't lie to yourself. So I always think that it's important that you prove yourself to yourself, and you improve yourself for nobody else other than yourself. You have to really try to, when you start to set something into action, as small as, I'm a huge believer in 10-minute walks. I share that often. I say, hey, just let's forget about diet. Let's just throw all this stuff out the window for a second, because I know it's difficult for everyone to maybe grasp or to understand how they're going to be fit, 5 years from now. But let's just start with a 10-minute walk. Can you do a 10-minute walk? Can we add some of these things in that you at the moment might view to be difficult? A couple of years from now, you're going to be like, 10-minute walk? Kidding me? Like, why would I walk 10 minutes? That's way too easy. Mm-hmm. But that's what you want people to say, because you want to encourage people to get out there and do shit. I think the anxiety riddled world that we're in right now is comprised of a lot of people that just aren't doing stuff for themselves. They're not proving themselves to themselves. If you're constantly doing stuff, I'm a believer that you won't have anxiety. You could perhaps have a condition, that may be, slightly different than what I'm talking about. But for the most part, when I think about my grandfather, and I think about somebody who was in World War II, somebody who survived the Great Depression, somebody who built his own home. This guy knew how to build his own cars. Mm-hmm. And if I was to ask my grandpa about anxiety, he'd be like, bullshit, and he'd stick a cigar in his mouth.
Right.
And I don't think it was because, some people would be like, well, those people, they suppressed it all down. And no, I honestly just don't think that he had a lot of time to think about it. And I think any time that he felt nervous, or he felt that kind of anxiety that some of us may feel, I think that he got up and worked. I think he was like, I got 9 kids. I better get my ass off to work. So that kind of lunchbox mentality of, showing up every day and taking the kind of the boring route, the road less traveled is going to be the route that takes the longest. And I know that it's not always the most popular thing, but if you just start, whatever it is, it could be anything. It could be you filming yourself, talking on YouTube, and you could completely suck at it right now. Maybe you don't even have the guts to upload it, but maybe you just put it on YouTube, but it's not public yet. Like, just something, and you get practice at it. You start to become good at it. You start to feel great about it.
Yeah, two weeks ago, I keep having this like internal feeling of rebellion because of what's going on in the world right now. The world is in a very stagnant, paralyzed posture right now. And 2 weeks ago, I tweeted, I said, I've been so busy lately, I keep forgetting to worry about stuff. Is there anyone else have the same condition? Like, I was like, I don't want to get better. This is not an ailment. I think especially in the world that we're in right now, where like literally physically people have been to some degree restrained from doing. It's such an important message. And these episodes live forever. So I don't want to date stamp it, but we're talking about COVID, right? I mean, the quarantine. But yeah, I mean, people just gotta do more. I agree with that so much. So
the gym I always say the gym is in your heart. The gym needs to be inside of you. Don't let the gym be a physical location. If you're anybody that follows any Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius and a lot of these other people, a lot of these other famous Stoics, they hated the idea of traveling because they thought that you were trying to escape from your problems. And they said, if you want to escape from your problems, you don't have to go any further than inside your own mind. So you don't need to have a beach house necessarily to escape that, or you don't need to go up in the mountains for a couple days and do some psilocybin mushrooms or whatever. Although you might still find that to be entertaining and fun.
Do you know Chris Cavalieri?
I do not.
Name a ring a bell. I had him on the show a month or two ago. He's a fitness influencer, but he spent a good chunk. He came from a really rough background and had a lot of criminality and spent a good chunk of time in jail. And it was his time prison, actually. And it was his time in prison that transformed him. That was his getaway. That was his respite. It's like you're talking about. It was a very, when you're in prison, it's like you're reduced to, you're either stoic or you lack any philosophy in prison because there's just nowhere else to go with it. Right. And it changed his life.
This is another, I think this is another misconception we see flying around out there too. So this gentleman that you're mentioning, Chris, he ended up having a great experience from, kind of a horrific or a hard time, or however he wants to place that in his life. I think that other people might think, well, I never really had that in my life. My dad didn't die, or this didn't happen, or that didn't happen. And I don't think you necessarily need that. I do think that some negative reinforcement, or maybe not even negative, but some resistance, I think can be really helpful, because we grow from resistance. We know that from the gym.
Right.
So anytime there's like resistance and you go to do something and you really mess it up, you really screw it up, I think that is a good thing. But I think a lot of times people hear these stories of somebody that had their mom and dad die in a plane accident when they were a kid, or they grew up super poor, or they were discriminated against and treated like shit, and they went from one orphanage to another when they were a kid, and so on. And it wasn't until they were 18 that they found out they could they were really good at volleyball or something. They got a scholarship somewhere, and then the rest is history. And they made it to the Olympics, won a gold medal, and so forth. So I don't think, and a lot of times with those people, a lot of times we're all still trying to, cure and we're all still trying to, heal some maybe wounds that we had from when we were younger. And for some people like myself, I always have to mention this. I always want to mention that I grew up really fortunate. I have two parents that loved me, that took care of me, that were there for everything. And they still are. If I went to my parents right now and said, hey, I'm in trouble, I need 10 grand, or I need something, they would just give me whatever they could give me. They would figure out a way to get it to me. And I always had enough hugs. And I like to kind of paint a picture for people with that, is that, if we were all born on, a track, or we were all born like to race against each other, I guess maybe, I just feel like my starting position may have been a little further ahead than somebody that's been discriminated against, somebody that grew up really poor, somebody that grew up in the slums of India or something like I don't know anything about that upbringing. I don't pretend to. So when we start talking like this, and I talk about, hey, like, here's a way that you can be better. Here's, it's a tough thing for everyone to be able to grasp, because some people have to come from so far back that it's going to take them a while just to have kind of their everyday needs fulfilled. Like the guy you're mentioning, Chris, who was in prison. Like, man, he had to go through like a real roller coaster of circumstances in order for him to be maybe lined up with you and I, on this track.
Yeah. I agree. I tend to look at it as pragmatically as possible, though, and say, be that as it may, what's going to get me the farthest, the fastest with whatever hand I've been dealt? And any other question, this is kind of a Stoic thing, is like, only ponder questions worth pondering, I got to ask, are you a Mike Mentzer fan?
Of course.
I'm feeling, his philosophical, his objectivist writings and stuff, I'm feeling maybe a Mike Mentzer energy in this conversation.
Yeah, I love Mike Mentzer's stuff. Mike Mentzer, the kind of creator of heavy duty training and doing things in like one set. And he always brought a philosophical vibe to it. I feel like, if I've always said this at seminars, I always start out by saying, if I'm going to teach you how to lift, I'm sorry, but I have to teach you how to live first. And I need to dump some philosophy on you, because you do need to understand that it's not really as much as it may be about the sets and the reps and the weights that you lifted. It's just not, it's the long game. It's how long can you do this for? How long can you sustain? How long can you maintain? We know this about nutrition, a piece of cake or some ice cream or something like that, not necessarily going to make you fat, right?
Right.
A couple bad days of dieting. Yes, you could maybe have gained a little bit of weight. But at the same time, a couple good days of staying on track with fitness, you're not going to have the dream body that you want. But if you start to think about what are some of the things that are in the way, which is usually yourself, you start to think about some of the things that are in the way of you having the body that you want, then you can start to say, well, how interested am I in that really? And then you might take your physique that you're looking for, that maybe started out as Arnold, into being a different version of that, because for you to be Arnold would mean that you would have to give up everything and work every single day as hard as you possibly could to go towards that goal. So I'm really a big believer in trying to figure out a way to be honest with yourself and figure out what your interests are. And then what I've noticed is that a lot of times when I say, hey, I really want to do that, I really want to be leaner, I really want to be this or that, I find myself saying, you know what, you're just not as interested as you originally thought you were, because if you were, you would line up your habits with all of it to be able to do it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And I feel that, like, in my community, so I'm basically an internet marketer. Just a little bit of background, and my audience knows this. I'm a digital marketer. I've worked online since 2008. But within that space, of the Russell Brunson and the Onyx Singal and the Mike Dillard and there's 10, 20, 30 of us. I don't know, however many. I'm kind of known as like the one who's also into fitness. Just kind of became part of my brand because it's such a consistent part of my conversation. And I actually get asked about it a disproportionate amount relative to, I'm not like a super jack guy. I'm not a fitness professional, but I still get the questions a lot. Habits. What time do you wake up in the morning? Just because of that whole, we're talking internet marketers. They're not like the most buff group of people in the world, but of that group, I'm the one who's kind of known for that. So the thing I love about it, and what I tell everyone about it, is like, it's how you do one thing is how you do everything. And the thing about your fitness, about the physical part of your life, it like you said, it's the hardest part of your life for you to tell yourself or anyone else a lie. You can look rich for a night, man. You can go rent a Lamborghini to shoot a video to put on Facebook to make yourself look rich. You cannot go rent a better body for a day. It betrays you. And I love that because, for me, I find that it's the keystone habit of the rest of my life. I'm the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Have you ever read that?
I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of times we have a tendency to size each other up. It's like, as much as we would love not to do that, and we'd love not to place judgment on people, whenever I'm like, man, I just think it's a fact, that guy probably has a lot more money than I do. And I can say, well, screw him. At least I can bench more than him. You know what I mean? Right. You want to, but like when it does come to fitness, it is very hard for people to have everything lined up properly. It does take a full commitment. If you want to be in good shape, it's a full-time job to be in good shape. Yeah. Because you do have to pay attention to your food all day long. However you decide you want to manage that, there's many different ways of doing it.
I got my meal prep for as soon as we're done. See? Right here, turkey tacos.
There you go. Yeah. You have to get your training in, and you have to not only train, but you have to work at it. It has to be a good session, and then you need to make sure you're on par with your sleep. And what entrepreneur wants to get any sleep? Like, I don't even want to go to bed. I've kind of forced myself to start thinking about a bedtime routine at like 8:30 every night. but I never want to go to bed. And I'm lucky if I can sleep 5 or 6 hours through the night. I've been that way, been that way for a very, very long time. I just want to get up. I just want to be doing stuff. I'm so excited about every day. So it's not, I don't feel nervous. I don't feel anxiety. I don't feel anything like that, but I just, the only way I can put it is like, I don't want to go to bed. I sometimes will feel tired, but even then I don't want to go to bed.
Yeah. I totally resonate with that. What time do you get up in the mornings? I'm curious.
It really depends on the time of year. You know, when it starts to get a little bit warmer out, I'll wake up just like when the sun's like a little bit before the sun gets out, probably around 5:30 or 6. But usually in the wintertime, I like waking up a little bit earlier and getting my training done. So sometimes I'll wake up, 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that.
So you don't have like a sort of militarized routine that you maintain every day in order to get everything done that you need to get done?
No, I think that might make me a little different than maybe some of the guests that you may have had on here, or some of what I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs and from a lot of people that are successful. I very much am not just day to day, but like moment to moment. And I don't know where that comes from or why that is that way. It could be, I feel like I'm more creative than I am smart necessarily. So I think that creative minds like to really wander.
Yeah.
A lot of times my team is like, "Hey, did you see Mark?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "Oh shit!" Like he's gone, like he's somewhere, but we don't know where he is, and like he'll probably be back in like 2 hours. It usually just means I like went for a walk or did something. I don't like to be, as much as my commitments are important to me. I kind of hate having to be anywhere specifically, any specific time. So I try not to, be too regimented or too dog. I want to have fun. I want to have fun in this world. I want to have fun in life. And for me to have fun, for me personally, if I have too many restrictions or too much shit going on, then it becomes less fun pretty quickly.
Yeah, I struggle with that myself. I'm genuinely interested in more on this subject. In my 20s, I was a jazz musician, right? So I literally improvised for a living. I wasn't just a musician; I was a jazz musician. It was supposed to be different every time I played, And but now in my 30s, I'm dreaming. My 40s now. I have to be so regimented to get everything done because, I'm married. I'm a dad. I have 4 kids. I like to be with my kids. I run Entra. I thankfully sold my agency. So I don't have to be an adult. Yeah. I have to be a grown up. Right. And yet fitness, it's non-negotiable for me. If I start missing workouts, I literally turn into like a degenerate scumbag. Like who I am when I'm very consistent about the gym and who I am when I'm not are two. It's almost like an addict, like, are they using or not? When they're not, they're like, great. And when they are, they're a disaster. That's me. When I'm not going to the gym, I might as well be using. Are you like that? Have you ever had a period since you started when you like consistently let it go?
So I definitely need to exercise to some degree. But as far as the actual gym, I've been a bro. I've been a meathead for so long that it just doesn't matter as much. And something I taught myself quite a while back was just like, I'm just going to get it done. Like, don't even worry about when it happens. Like let's say, like, I don't really like to use an alarm to wake up. So let's just say for whatever reason, I slept a little longer than normal and it's 6 o'clock or something. And I was planning on, trying to work out at 6 o'clock. Well, now my whole day is bumped. Well, I'm not going to just stress over like, oh man, I got to get this workout done. The workout will either happen or it won't. And if it doesn't happen, it'll happen tomorrow. So for me, like I don't mind a little procrastination. It works for me. I'm okay with it because I've been doing it for so long that, if you were to say like, hey, are you consistent with your workouts? You'd be like, you missed 4 workouts in the last year and a half. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So it's going to be really extreme circumstances that I would miss anything. And sometimes, if I am crunched for time or something happens or the day gets away from me, I mean, it's not really necessarily time. It's more about prioritizing. We all know that, but I may have prioritized my day in a different way for whatever reason. And I could say, all right, well, you know what? I don't know what the rest of the day is going to look like. It looks like there's kind of a lot of stuff on the plate for today. So I'm just going to run right now. And maybe I'll just run a mile or something like that, or run for 10, 15 minutes straight. And then, I'll stop and then I'll get back into doing whatever I was doing, podcasting, meetings, or whatever I have scheduled for the day. And then I'll kind of look at the clock and I'll be like, do I still have time to get a training session in? Because I usually don't eat the beginning half of most days. I usually don't eat. So that's kind of a factor too. If I start looking at the clock and it's going to be a stretch between, lifting or eating, I have to kind of pick wisely. And I want to make sure that I'm, I want to make sure I'm jacked and tan, and I want to make sure I'm a machine, but I also want to make sure I'm a well-fed machine, right? So I sometimes have to just think, hey, dude, you know what? Just F and relax. Go home and eat. Because for me, I don't know how your day goes, but for me, my favorite part of the day is the end of the day, because then I'm just with my family the whole day, and it's just it's eating, it's hanging out with my kids, hanging out with my wife. A lot of times we'll try to watch a movie together or a TV show together, and I get like 3 or 4 hours of just doing pretty much nothing, but it's absolutely amazing. So that's kind of my day is really chock full of a lot of stuff in the beginning of the day, lifting, whatever exercise I need to get done, meetings, podcasts, things of that nature. And then that last half of the day is just chilling with the family.
So I want to talk about how you evolved into the life that you just described. Because it really sounds like, it's kind of the dream for most people, is like wake up with purpose, be excited to get up, even a little short on sleep because I just can't wait to get up and attack the day, and then, get all the necessaries done with and be able to ride out the end of the day with my family. Like that's most people's dream, I would think. Certainly sounds like mine. So I want to talk about how you evolved into that. But first, I have to ask, I just want to kind of know about your experience. When I was reading your bio, you mentioned 2 names that I'm like, man, I would have done a lot to be able to spend time around those 2 guys. One was Mike O'Hearn and the other was Ed Cohn. Again, I've been a avid, it was Muscle and Fitness, but there was another one, like when I was in high school, I read Muscular Development.
Muscle Media 2000.
Muscle Media 2000. Yeah. Flex magazine. I've been a sort of an ardent follower of this part of life for decades now. And those are 2 names. I was like, man, he spent a lot of quality time with both of those guys. Tell me a little bit about, let's start with Ed Cohn, if we could. The man, the myth, and a lot of people may not know who he is, but we're talking about a guy that was 220 pounds that could raw deadlift 950 and squat 1,000. And this wasn't like now, like he didn't have a slingshot. He didn't have like space age suits. He was just strong. Like, tell me about that, man. Tell me about Ed.
Yeah. If you were to look up Ed Cohn, and then you were to also look up Bill Kazmaier.
Yeah.
So Ed Cohn broke Bill Kazmaier's all-time powerlifting record. Bill Kazmaier is probably 6'4" and probably 290. He was just an absolute animal. Actually, he's probably more like 330 pounds or so. Ed Cohn is like 5'5" or 5'5" or 5'4", and he competed at 198, 220, and 242. So a much lighter body weight guy, breaking the all-time world record in powerlifting, deadlifting over 900 pounds, as you mentioned, at 220. That record stayed intact for like 30 years. Just an absolute savage on the platform. I don't think he's ever lost a powerlifting meet. He's the Wayne Gretzky, of powerlifting, or like it's hard to even compare, because he was so good for so long and so dominant that no one even came anywhere near anything that he did. But one of the main things I learned from him was kind of more outside the gym, where I had a situation happen with a training partner and a longtime friend, and he just kind of put it to me very frankly and just said, hey, you know what, Mark, be good to those who are good to you and don't do anything else. And I was just like, be good to those who are good to you and don't do anything else. And I was like, fuck. I'm like, that's actually really hard to do. It shouldn't be hard to do, but it is hard because we get caught up, and if I think about the internet, it's called the World Wide Web for a reason. Like, what do spiders catch their prey? And they catch them in a web. And it's easily to get caught up in a fight on the internet or get caught up in, what you said is not right. I got to prove what I said is right. So here's this message, right? And so, that message to me from Ed Cohn saved me a lot of time and energy. And then one of the other ones that he said that's in the gym, but also another great metaphor outside of the gym is, I asked him, I said, when would you max out and when would you miss a lift? Because I was pushing some pretty big numbers and I would miss a lift here or there. And so I was kind of curious as to how do you know when to roll the dice, and how far should I be taking some of this? And he was like, he said he never maxed out and he said he never missed a weight in the gym. And I was just like, is this one of these old guy tales or something?
Right.
It doesn't even make any sense. Right. But after being in powerlifting for so long and seeing the best of the best and seeing people make progress, the people that make progress don't miss lifts. It would be really, really rare. I would say the best guy in the gym, if he competed 2 or 3 times in a year, he might miss 2 or 3 lifts, and that might be on game day. That might be on the platform. Yeah. In powerlifting, you get 3 attempts, do bench, squat, and deadlift. So it might be on their 3rd attempt, bench, squat, or deadlift, where they do roll the dice and they're like, screw it, I'm going to see if I can deadlift 700 pounds or whatever it might be for that particular day. But when he said that, I was like, wow, he's never maxed out. On the platform is different. When it was game day, if he had to go for it, he went for it, and sometimes he'd come up shy. Sometimes he wouldn't do the lift technically sound and he would get red lighted by the judges or something like that. But that gives you an idea of what we were talking about in the very beginning about how hard something is. So when Ed Cohn would make a lift in a competition, even with 900 pounds or 1,000 pounds, it would still look easy. And it still probably felt fairly easy to him. It was challenging, though. It was challenging, and it was kind of riding that fine line. But you cannot make improvement. It's very, very difficult to make improvements when it comes to physical activity. When it comes to physical and mental activity, you can't force improvement. You can't try to learn more than you can learn in a given day. You can't. When I say can't, I want you to kind of keep in mind there's always the exception, right? But when I'm saying you can't is that it would be very difficult to try to learn. If I tried to learn from you in a day and I just sat down hey, give me everything you got. And then I went over Elon Musk, give me everything you got. I went to Jeff Bezos, give me I'm not going to really absorb much of it. Right. I'm not going to get much. You can't max out like that. It doesn't work that way. It would work better if I was hey, man, you got 20 minutes and I talk to you on the phone for 20 minutes. We meet in person here and there. I meet with these other people, rub elbows with them and things like that. And so it's a great metaphor for life is that, you only got whatever you built yourself into. And when Ed Cohn was talking about these big lifts, if you're trying to, every day you're trying to bench press 400 pounds, you're going to continually miss it because you don't have the correct information in your body. You don't have the correct strength and the correct motor patterns stored in your body just yet. You can't fast forward to get them, and you can't just try to add more weight to get them. You have to earn it over a period of time. So you have to take your time with the 3 sets of 3 or 3 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 10, and it's going to be boring and it's going to take a long time. But when you come back around to it the next time, when that 400 pounds used to be your max, you're going to do it. It's going to be pretty easy, and you won't need to even go any heavier because you'll have gotten the what you needed for the day, what you needed from the day. It's really interesting when it comes to strength training in particular. You just need to kind of graze right next to it. You don't need the heaviest weight. If you can bench press 400 pounds, you wouldn't need to bench press 400 pounds. You'd need to bench 350, 365, and so on, for repetitions and things like that. And then over a period of time, you would be able to do 415, 420, 425, and so on. But it would be a lot harder for you to try to continually get stronger with the heavier weights. It's easier to get stronger with the lighter weights and with the repetition. Sometimes sometimes it can get tricky, but you kind of get the idea. Like, just trying to go too hard is detrimental, and it won't really get you to where you think it might take you.
Yeah, I think this is such a metaphor. I tend to assume that most of my audience is primarily, the reason they're following me is because they're interested in learning how to build a business, right? They have an entrepreneurial inclination, but kind of like you, and when somebody wants to talk about working out, and you're like, listen, man, it doesn't just all happen in the gym. It's how you live your whole life. Like Ed Cohn, taught you lessons outside the gym. I think that being successful as an entrepreneur and successful in business extends way beyond, the 2 hours a day that you're most productive sitting at your computer. And I think the two things I've done in my life that I've derived the most wisdom from, that have informed my success in business, have been the gym and the piano. And it's amazing how many parallels I see between the gym and the piano. Kind of like as you were talking, what I kept thinking is, you're never, I wouldn't say never, but it's not particularly productive. And in fact, it can be detrimental to try to practice a piece at max velocity. To say, hey, let me play this piece as fast as I can. Because every time you miss a note, you train your muscles to miss notes. I assume it's the same with a lift, right? And in fact, the best way to learn to play fast is to practice really slow. And
they actually call it in boxing. I used to box as well, and they call it sparring partner syndrome. So if you're the sparring partner for a champion, you'll never be a champion, because you're the sparring partner. You're learning how to lose. You're learning how to get hit. Like you're there to be a punching bag a little bit for the other guy. So you don't learn what it would take to get over the hump to be able to. And you're probably damn near as good as the other guy. That's the other thing about it. You're probably really close. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even invited you in there to do it with them. So. Yeah, it's really interesting. And the piano, draws a lot of parallels as well, even though I've never played or I'm not musically inclined at all. But what I've seen is that, if we were to all sit down at 8 years old in front of a piano, someone would play better than somebody else, than the rest of the group. Even if you had 100 kids that never even played a piano, somebody would be better than somebody else. For me, my piano was the weight room. The second I touched weights, I was a little bit stronger. I happened to be a little bit bigger than some of my friends. I remember they were struggling to push the bar, and I was able to put, 25s on each side and do a couple reps. And they were like, what? And I had a little practice because we had some weights in my garage, but they were baffled. They were like, what is this? But I think that piano analogy is another good analogy for life. Sometimes you get screwed. Like sometimes who knows why the kid at 8 years old can play.
Right.
And who knows why, he gets it so quick that he becomes better than his teacher at 10 or something like that. We don't know, but we're born with what we're born with. And you got to try to find these kind of hidden superpowers that you have. And you got to do the best with whatever it is that you got.
Yeah, I agree. And don't do what I did, which is figure out at a really young age that you could be really good at something and then neglect it. Unless you deeply know it's just not who you are. There's some people that.
Yeah. What do you think was connected to that? Was there maybe some sort of lack of interest, or was it maybe some other things outside of that was?
I actually think that I experienced at a very young age and thankfully processed through in the first couple decades of my life, what I see impacting a lot of people much later in life, which is a fear or a reticence about succeeding and most fully becoming who they could. Because I had the talent that I could have been prodigal. But I refused. I took a few lessons when I was a little kid. I said, no, I don't like this. I want to play outside with my friends. which I was not a good athlete. I would have been a lot better playing piano than basketball. But, and I didn't come back to it until I was a teenager, when I literally came back to it as a practical decision to say, what can I get good at that I can make enough money doing freelance that I won't have to get a job? That's actually the only reason I became a serious musician.
I did the same thing with lifting.
Yeah.
What you said there was really well put, because when I talk to some friends that are really successful, or when I see some of my friends on Instagram and some forms of social media, and they have like millions of followers, and they're able to really execute really well on a lot of things, but I also know that they're sad. They don't feel good about a lot of the things they're doing. I've had many of the same experiences as you have had. And so I think maybe I somehow was able to work through it at a much younger age. When it came to lifting, I kind of always had it. I still had to work very hard at it. There was still a lot of ups and downs with it all, but I left lifting many, many times. That's how I got into boxing. I left lifting. I always wanted to be a pro football player. I never wanted to be a lifter, because lifting wasn't anything. When I was a kid, they used to announce over the loudspeaker, because my mom would call the school and say that I broke a state record or something like that. And they would announce it on the loudspeaker at school when I was in like 8th grade. And I would like duck down in my chair and just be, redder than this shaker cup right here. I'd be really embarrassed, because nobody knew anything about powerlifting. So then all the other kids would say, "Hey, what was that? You did some sort of record and this or that?" Like, I just didn't know that anyone would think it was cool. But I turned my back on lifting many times, even though I continued to plug away and continued to do it. It would have been interesting to kind of see from the age of 12, if I would have gave it a full go, all the way through, what may have been possible. But I also don't think that I was interested in it enough when I was young to not have burned out or really hurt myself or something like that.
Well, it's what you said about outlasting. I think that coming to something with the peace to be consistent and certain over a long period of time is a much greater recipe for success than trying to seize on an opportunity or a talent that may be real, but it's not in your heart.
Were you maybe denying the fact that you were the piano guy? You were the pianist. You were were you maybe like trying to almost like, okay, yeah, I am that kid. I'm pretty good at it. I get it. But no. Like, I have more depth to me than that. I want to do other things.
And it's not so much depth. More depth. I think it was, and this is, kids, we're ignorant and sometimes we're shallow. That wasn't the identity that I wanted. I wanted a cooler identity. Honestly, I wanted a sports identity, and I wanted to get the girls' identity, and that wasn't being the piano kid. But I mean, it's just, woulda, could have
been the next Lin-Manuel Miranda or something. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Who knows? But, I'm happy with the way things worked out and the lessons that I've learned. And it sounds like a lot of the same things I've taken from music that you've taken from the gym, just about consistency, habits. The piano is another thing that doesn't lie. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, I took lessons when I was a kid. I was really good." Okay, great. Play me something. Okay. Well, I don't know who you're fooling.
Not sure who you learned from.
Yeah. It just doesn't lie. It's like trying to rent a 6-pack for a day. So, okay, I want to talk about your shift into becoming an entrepreneur. And are you good on time? Yep.
I'm great. Yep.
Talk 5-10 more minutes at least. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. So you're in the gym one day, and what was your first, because you have like 3 patents, and you're an inventor as much as you're a weightlifter from my reading anyways. What was your first thing where you're like, I think I've got an idea, I'm going to see it through, which is, ideas are a dime a dozen, but clearly at some point you saw one through, and that's made all the difference. What was that idea?
Yeah, I would first like to say that, so you're asking me about time, something that I have worked on is, I make time for stuff. I do the best I can. We obviously all have our challenges, but I don't ever feel like I don't have time. I don't ever feel like I'm too busy. So a lot of times I find it interesting because people will say, "Hey, I know you're really busy." I think that I used to be really busy, or I used to feel really busy, but I don't feel really busy anymore. I feel like I have somehow, at least for myself, at least for at the moment, who knows how I'll feel 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I feel like I have I'm kind of on the other side of things. You know, being in my 40s, I feel like, you know, I'm in the second half of this long game, right? And I feel like I put a lot of work in and I put a lot of time in. And so whenever someone asks me like, hey, are you busy or what? You know, I'm like, no, I can make time for that. I can make time to have a meeting with somebody. Fans come to the gym all the time. My gym is free. I mentioned that to you before we started recording today. And they're like, I can't believe you have time to talk to me. But it's because of the work that went before it. And so how I got into all this and how it all got started was, you know, I've been training since I was a kid. I've always loved powerlifting, always loved pushing the envelope and trying to lift as much as I possibly could. And I'd run into people when I went to a seminar or when I went here or there to try to learn more about strength training. Somebody would say, hey, like, you seem pretty big, you know, how much do you lift? Or we'd get talking about lifting and I'd say, oh, you know, I bench, you know, 400 pounds or whatever the weight was at the time. And they would say, oh, I used to be able to do that. And then I would run into another guy and he'd say, I used to be able to. And I was always like, why do either all these older guys are lying to me or there's some reason on why they can't do it anymore. And so as I started to get stronger, go from 400 to 450 to 500 and so on, as I started to climb that ladder, I started to get injured. I started to get hurt. And I was preparing for competition. I tore my pec and I was really distraught because my deadlift was flying. My squats were going really good. And I still wanted to compete. So I tore my pec in training, but it was minor. I know it sounds weird to have a minor pec tear, but it just didn't seem like it was going to be that huge of a deal. So what I did was in powerlifting, they make compression suits. They make like bench shirts and squat suits and these things. And these things can help you lift more weight. On top of it, they cause a lot of compression. And so they'll give you some assistance with the weight, but they'll also take a lot of pressure off your joints, your tendons, your ligaments, and even your muscles to some extent. And so I went into this competition and I wore a very baggy, a very loose, it's called a bench shirt. And I used the bench shirt in training. And as I prepped for the competition, my chest started to feel better and better. And I went to the competition and I competed and I did really well. And so I took that information and the next week I went into the gym and I just sat at the end of the bench wearing this bench shirt that was a couple sizes too big for me. And I was like, this thing is pretty damn badass. It like, not only did it heal me, but it allowed me to do what I love to do. And it allowed me to like strengthen myself all during this time where I thought I tore my pec. I thought I was out of the game, but I was still able to, you know, compete and still able to do well. And then I was like, well, you know, what are some of the drawbacks of this thing? I'm like, well, first of all, nobody knows what this thing is because they're not marketed very well. But even if they were marketed, it looks like a straitjacket. It's kind of made out of material that sometimes it's made out of material that you make jeans out of. So it's made out of like denim. It looks odd, takes multiple people to help you get into it, and it costs a lot of money. So I was like, maybe I can create something.
You kind of look like a zombie.
Yeah. You walk around like a mummy. You can't move. And so I was like, well, maybe I can make something that's stretchier and lighter and easier to use. And plus a bench shirt is really weird too, because you need X amount of weight on the bar to even bring the weight down full range of motion. You might need like 120% of your max in order to get the weight to go all the way down to your chest. It's really weird, hard to describe. But anyway, I kind of took that concept and played around for a while with a bunch of different ideas, all of which were bad. I even went to a few companies and said, hey, I have this idea. I want to make this upper body device that helps you with bench press. And they were like, yeah, it's called a bench shirt. And I was like, yeah, no, I know there's a bench shirt, but bench shirts, they hurt to put them on. It takes multiple people to put them on. They cost $200-300. I'm like, it's not feasible for people to be utilizing that in the gym. I'm talking more about something that people would really enjoy using. Maybe athletes would use it. Some of the older people that have gotten banged up, and the younger guys would love it because they would be able to lift a little bit more weight. And each company I went to kind of confirmed that it was a bad idea. I continued to try to work on it. And, you know, I should mention also, you mentioned like failing like at everything and like nothing going well. So I was the same way. People ask me all the time, hey, did you have any failures along the way with your business? And the answer is no. All the failing happened before I had a business.
Right.
All the stuff in the business has been very successful, and there's been like hiccups, and there's been things that have been off, and we've had to throw away product, and like there's been some small misses here or there, but every single thing that we made, everything is sold really well, everything's done really well. But all the screwing up that you can do, that was basically the beginning part of my life, and I can talk about that in a little bit if you want as well. I kind of bought this story that I was dumb. I was put in some special classes when I was young, and so that was my narrative to myself, which wasn't great. Anyway, I kept working on this idea. I kept working on this product, and I took Under Armour shirts that were super tight, and I put them on, and I put them over my arms, and I had it stretch across my chest without putting my head in the shirt. Yeah. And I tried to
totally see that now that you're describing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried to bench press with that, and it kind of worked. It actually grabbed my elbows and assisted me up a little bit, but it kind of hurt more so than anything else. And I was like, well, that's not really, I can't. And it gave me these kind of marks under my arms and stuff. I was like, people are not going to dig that, and people wouldn't pay for something like that. So I just kept kind of thinking about it. And eventually I took a pair of knee wraps or a pair of wrist wraps rather, with my dad out of the back of the trunk of my crappy car, like Honda Accord or something I was driving at the time, which I don't know how I fit into. But my dad and I are kind of, making this contraption, and my dad puts the wrist wrap around one elbow and he puts it around the other elbow, and then we connect it in the middle, and he holds it. And I'm like, oh yeah, hold it right there. Let me pull my elbows back and let me see if this is going to work. And as I pulled my elbows back, the Velcro broke and it hit him in the face. He's like, I don't think that's what you're looking for. And I was like, no, I think that's it. I think that's perfect. I actually do. That's the right feel, And so from there, I took a pair of knee wraps, and this is anyone can play along at home with what I'm about to say next. Is I just started to review all the people that I knew, and I started to think, like, who can help me with this? And I was really frustrated. I actually got to a point where I was in our other beat up car. I was in our minivan, and I was literally like in tears because I was so frustrated, because I was trying to make this thing for a long time, and I'm fast forwarding over some hardship and stuff like that. But it took a long time to make the product. And in the process of trying to make the product, I gave up on it a couple times. I stopped because I was like, people are right, man. Like this idea is dumb. I went to a couple different companies and they don't seem to get it, and they think it's stupid. Like, maybe they're right. Maybe it is dumb. And I left the idea kind of dormant for a bit. But then my oldest brother, Mike, he was addicted to drugs and alcohol and things like that. And he died. And when he died, that was the kind of momentum that I kind of needed. I kind of needed a kick in the ass, and that was it. And when he passed away, I think it was just a couple of days later, I had a dream, and he came to me in the dream. And I've talked to some other people that have had things like this happen where, it's almost like a little form of like PTSD, I guess you'd say. But he came to me in a dream, and he said, "Think." And I have a thing right across the room that I'm in, and it's just a board, and it's just think on it. But that moment made me think, and made me kind of recognize, like, that thought that you have needs to turn into something, and it needs to turn into something right the fuck now. Like, you need to get going on this, because life is short. And so I took the concept and idea, and I started to really mull over in my head, who do I know that can help me with this? I tried explaining it to my wife. I tried explaining it to my parents. I tried to explain it to a bunch of people, and no one knew what I was really talking about, even though it wasn't that hard of a concept to get. So I finally asked my wife, I was like, do you just know someone that can sew? Like, I have these knee wraps, and I just need them sewn together. And she goes, oh yeah. She's like, my friend, Marilyn, she does our, my wife's a swimmer, and she's like, my friend Marilyn does our swimsuits. So yeah, you can probably take those knee wraps over to her, and she can sew them up. So I met Marilyn at Starbucks, and I said, hey, can you sew this like this? And this is kind of the way it would look. And she's like, yeah, I think so. She's like, I have a a pretty good machine, a pretty good upholstery machine, and I can, lace it with some good material so it doesn't bust apart, And so I met her again the very next week, and she had kind of these prototypes of the Sling Shot. She pulled it out of her bag, and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, that's what's been in my head for so long, and now I'm seeing it for the first time. I said, can you stay here for just a minute? I was like, there's a gym just a couple hundred feet. So I go running down, and I go into this gym with the Sling Shot and, just bypass the guy at the front desk as if I already have a membership there. That's always the key thing to getting into any gym. Oh, yeah. So I just bypassed that guy, and I put on 135 pounds. I do a couple reps with it, and it felt really good. Then I put 225 on and had the Sling Shot on again and did some reps with it, and the weight's just flying off my chest. There was no pain in my elbows or my chest. And when I got up off the bench, I was just covered head to toe in goosebumps. And I was like, this is fucking it. Like you did it. Like, you big dumb idiot. You finally did something awesome, And I knew that was like a lottery ticket. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen or previous guests ever had this happen, but I had a vision right there. It may have happened kind of in the course of the next few days or maybe even a few weeks as we prototyped it and made different renditions of it. But I had a very clear vision of what was going to happen. And I kind of knew that I was going to make other products around it. I even was able to tell approximately how many we were going to be able to sell, which I don't know why any of this came to me, because I don't have any previous business history. I've never read one book just in my life, just because I don't like to read. And so I don't know how this hit me or why, but it just did. It was a really clear vision. And so my wife and I, we ordered 4,000 of these things that we didn't know how we were going to sell, but I was like, I think we'll sell them in a year. I think everyone's like, I just was naive. I was just fired up and excited. I was like, I think everyone's going to want to buy these. And I was right. It took us about 14 months. So I was a little bit off, but we've been selling them ever since. That was 10 years ago. And now we make everything from knee sleeves to hip circles to slingshots to elbow sleeves. We have apparel. We're launching a supplement line coming up pretty soon. So we got a little bit of everything, but that's how everything kind of came to be, to the point where, so I basically, the short answer is I invented a product. Because if you invent a product that people care about, that people like, that people enjoy, then you make money on that for however long you want to sell it for, as long as it's a good product. It's the only rule. It's got to be a halfway decent idea, and then you can make money while you sleep, basically. Yeah.
Well, to your, I'm going to be more generous to you than you are. It takes more than a good idea. It takes, you just told the story pretty quickly, but I got to think you just summed up a few years.
Right.
That's a multi-year.
About journey. 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you. Years. Go ahead.
I was going to say it was about 4 years from me having the thought in my head to me actually making it, because I went back and forth with myself so many times on whether it was even a good idea or not. And then ultimately, when I did make it, getting a patent for it, that took another 4 years, which is crazy, because you wouldn't think that you'd think, like, if you have money and you have the correct dialogue and the correct paperwork done, that it might take a year to get a patent, but it took us 4 years. But the other side of it that I should mention too, that's important, and what, to your point, is, no, I didn't just sit on my ass. You're right. I didn't just have a good idea. I didn't just have a good invention. It was much more than that. And the other side of it was the fact, that I did something about it and kept trying to move that ball along, even though if I did so a little reluctantly here and there. And then the second part of that is I filmed everything. I documented everything. I have the first set of shipments of slingshots that ever came to my garage in Woodland, California, all the way till now. We have a Slingshot World Headquarters in West Sacramento. I've documented all of it, and all of it's on YouTube, and you can see the whole evolution. And that's exactly what happened. People followed along. And so that's why there was, Gary Vee says, attention is the asset. I already had attention, and then I created an asset. And so the two things, they came together really quickly. And I think people were appreciative, and they were like, shit, I'll buy stuff from this guy. This guy's been giving me free information for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I at least take a crack at buying his $40 Sling Shot and maybe buy a pair of his wrist wraps? Like I probably should, because I've been, gaining a bunch of knowledge on how to bench, squat, and deadlift from him. So I should give back, that type of thing. So that was the other side of it that I left out of there.
Yeah. What I hope is resounding through the audience as they hear that story is there's a lot that you just shared that applies to success in general, whether or not someone has a unique idea. Like, you happen to apply those principles to inventing a unique product that didn't previously exist. But honestly, it wouldn't have been any different if you had gotten a loan officer's license and decided to do mortgages. Stay the course, be diligent. It's okay to have a bad day, but don't drift away too long. It's kind of like the gym. Take a day off. Okay, whatever. Take a month off. Yeah, you're losing some momentum, right? And giving value, building like an energy of reciprocity, where essentially the world almost does owe you something, but not because you've been selfish, but because you've been selfless. And there is a balancing over time.
And I think the world will give you what you put into it, so it may not necessarily it may not owe you anything, but I mean, I haven't seen it happen yet. I haven't seen someone put out a lot of positivity and put out a lot of effort and literally get nothing back. I have never seen it. And something I like to mention to a lot of people that are listening is I've never met one person that doesn't possess the ability to get stronger. So in all my years of training people, and all my years of being a coach, in all my years I've seen thousands upon thousands of people lift: white, black, Asian, male, female, young, old, short, skinny, fat, you name it. I've seen them. And I have never met one person that doesn't possess the ability to get a little stronger. I never met one person that can't go from doing one push-up to being able to do 2 push-ups. I never met one person that can't walk to the mailbox, that can't later on in life, walk to the telephone pole down the street. So you can make progress. It's a fascinating thing. And I think this is what keeps me up at night, because I'm like, I don't want to fucking sleep. And I know that sleep is part of progress.
Right.
I know that, I study all this stuff as well, but I feel like I'm wasting my time. I'm like, do I need 8 hours? Like, can I do 5.5, and can I spend the rest, working on myself? But we all know that we need reprieve, and we need to, relax and calm down, and all that stuff is really important. But for anyone that's feeling like they're stuck, anyone that's feeling like they're down and out, feeling like they're not going to be able to do it, I've never met one person that doesn't possess the ability to learn. So for myself, where I bought this story that I was dumb because I was put in these particular classes, I was only like behind, I guess you'd say, some other kids in school, which isn't really a big deal because there's so many different ways to learn, and school teaches you one particular way. I just happen to not be very gifted at that one particular way, but I didn't really know that, even though my parents were there to kind of tell me that. My parents let me know, but when you're a teenager and you're a kid, you don't want to hear it from your parents. But everyone possesses the ability to learn. And also, out of all the scientists, out of all the people in the world that have such a crazy wealth of information, no one can put a cap on what you can learn and know. I think that's fascinating. I think that's amazing. You can learn infinite. Somebody wouldn't be able to tell you, hey, you can only learn 1,400 things in your life, and then that's it. They don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah, that's really, really profound. And I love, I hope, again, I want these, I started this podcast, this show, because I wanted people to hear it from not just me, that talent's cool. Intelligence is cool. Frankly, they're both pretty overrated in the grand lexicon of what does it take to be successful. my dad was dyslexic and literally didn't finish his MBA because he was like, and yet he became a, money manager, managed money for billionaires. And like, there's people in that industry who go, you can't do that without an MBA. And he's like, look, I'm dyslexic. School's not my gig. But persistence, tenacity, I mean, they're cliches, but they're not. They're just as relevant to entrepreneurial and business success as they are to the gym. Nobody thinks that consistency is a cliche in the gym. So why is it a cliche anywhere else? It's not. It's actually the X factor. You remind me of my friend. I have a friend who invented the Breathe Right strip, that goes on your nose.
Oh yeah, those things rock. Yeah, I use them. Tell them that I use them.
I will. I actually, as we're talking, I'm like, man, I need to have, his name's Bruce. I need to have Bruce on the show. But he spent 6 years inventing this stupid little piece of rubber, cloth and tape with a plastic spine. 6 years tinkering in his basement to solve his own snoring problem. $2.5 billion. I think the brand sold to Glaxo for $2.1 billion or something. Like, but how many people want to bench more, want to deal with shoulder pain, but they don't convert that into consistent action over time. And here's the thing, there's a lot of people that take action. They take massive action. They're in the gym every January 1st, taking massive action on the heel of their New Year's resolution. But where are they in March? And where are they in August? And where are they 7 years from now? Can they say like you, I only missed 4 workouts in the last few years? No, And my buddy that did the Breathe Right strip, people have these big ideas all the time. So what is it, man? What this, because ultimately, if I could say this is what this show is about, it's trying to figure out what is it about the people who do it that differentiates them, because if we can figure that out, maybe we can bottle it and serve it to everyone and everyone can have the life they want. What is it about you that made you the guy that would do it? Because you're probably not the first with this idea.
Right. I would say that, a big factor is just putting one foot in front of the other, because as I mentioned in the very, in the middle or beginning of the podcast, you have to prove yourself to yourself consistently, constantly. You have to prove to yourself that you can do it. Part of doing a powerlifting meet, it's actually really interesting because, in a squat, you get judged by like the certain depth that you're supposed to go to. Your hip crease is supposed to be below your knee, right? But what I always taught my lifters was just go out there and just pretend like you know what you're doing. Show these guys a pretty squat on the first go of it, and the second one, the third one, if I'm being totally honest with you, they can be a little higher than the first one. Huh. If you learn how to play the game. But doing things and figuring out a way to gain momentum off of that first thing that you do, gain momentum off that first squat, gain momentum off of the fact that you can say, today was kind of a crap day, but I did walk for 2 miles. Like, that's pretty cool. And if I look back, 2 years ago, I wouldn't even, my knee always bothers me. I wouldn't even thought to have walked that far. So just doing those little things, they add up a lot greater than we think. I really like Stoicism, and I like some of the stuff that comes from people like Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss. The obstacle is the way, is a really an amazing passage, but it kind of states that what stands in the way becomes the way. The impediment to action advances. The impediment to action, I'll say it again. The impediment to action advances action. That's what made me the guy that did it, is because I had an impediment. I had something in the way. The idea is dumb. You're dumb. I took some action on it. The action gave me a little bit of positive feedback. And the crazy thing is, statements like that have been made, thousands upon thousands of years ago. But now there's scientific evidence of this, so that when this is going to create, this is going to ingrain certain circuitry in your brain and certain hormones in your brain to be released, to where your body's going to be like, that's more important for you to do that than it is to not do that. And so by you like, sitting around or whatever, your body's going to be like, dude, don't sit around, go for it. Because remember what happened last time when we went for it? Something really cool happened. So you need to go for it again, and you need to go for it again, and you need to go for it again, and so on. So that's what I would say for people to really try to just remember is that the impediment to action advances action. That little whisper in your ear that tells you to sit down on the couch and tells you just to relax and tells you that the day is over, say, no. That little thing that says, hey, you don't need to do your 10-minute walk for today, or you don't need to eat right for today, because let's face it. Today was a really tough day, right? Today was really hard. It was a really long day. It was a really long week. It's Friday, dude. You should enjoy yourself. Have a brownie. Have some ice cream. Just fucking sit down. Just relax. Don't. When you feel that start to slide in, you need to ask yourself, why is that there? It's probably because there's some sort of fatigue. You didn't get enough sleep. Your training's off. Something's probably a little bit off. But lean into that and say, you know what? That's my cue to put my shoes on and to go outside and go for a run. Or that's my cue to put my shoes on and go for a walk. I'm not saying that you need to be a maniac 24/7, because I certainly don't want anyone to be living their lives with more anxiety than they need to. But you know in your heart, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you know what's right for you, and you know you should be able to, it will be hard sometimes, but you should be able to figure out what's a little bit more difficult for you today than what you did yesterday or the week before, but also what's reasonable. You can't be away from your wife and family for, weeks on end because you're trying to advance yourself and you're trying to be better, right? That's probably not the most conducive thing towards your marriage, towards your, right? So it has to still be it has to be reasonable. And you'll know when you like really, screwed yourself over and went too hard. And plus, if you have a good significant other, they'll give you that look. I know that you've gotten that look before. And the talk of like, hey, listen, I know you're trying to, you get put in your place by your old lady, right?
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And, to me, I think, and I deal, perhaps you deal with this. I mean, I assume you deal with a lot of people that are trying to transform their physical life. I deal with a lot of people that are trying to transform their professional life, whether it's their actual financial life or what they have to do to get money. And very often what I find is that ultimately the impediment is just a lack of simplicity. Because what you just said is it's not a complicated idea. It's like progressive resistance, but don't go so hard you set yourself back. You know what I mean? It's not some super, rocket science level idea, but what makes it a complex idea, what makes it a difficult idea to put into practice is when there's all this other complexity in your life. So that can't be your fundamental operating principle because there's too many competing agendas at any given time. Like, well, I'm a part of too many clubs, or I have too many friends, or I'm trying to juggle too many balls. And so I don't have the luxury of being guided by this very simple and effective principle that Mark just expounded. And in that sense, I guess my prescription is to, first of all, add by subtracting, remove things from your life. I mean, at the end of the day, being healthy is just what's left over when you stop doing crap that's bad for you. Right? Being effective is what's left over when you stop doing ineffective crap. Right?
Yeah, walk. Try to get 8 hours of sleep, which I mentioned I'm not great at. Maybe you walk 2 or 3 times a day. Try 2 or 3 10-minute walks. That's going to kill some time right there. We need to occupy our mind. We need to occupy our day. We need to fill our plate up with so much shit that there is nothing left over to do that would be bad. Eating a lot of protein is something that can be really beneficial. Whether you eat a lot of carbs or whether you eat a lot of fat, I mean, you can pick your energy source. But your protein isn't really much of an energy source. Your protein goes a little bit more towards sustaining the current muscle mass that you have, and maybe even going towards some additional muscle mass that you might be, trying to gain. And then also just staying hydrated, drinking enough water. You start to implement a lot of those principles. maybe, I'm not saying this is helpful for everybody, but maybe you try a little bit of intermittent fasting. Maybe try to just miss out on breakfast maybe, and try to conclude your day of eating 2 hours prior before you go to bed. Now you have 12 or 14 hours where you're not eating. The rest of the day is concentrated around your work, your exercise, and obviously getting in the gym. Now your day is so occupied, you don't have time to really eat a bunch of junk. You could still have some junk, but you could see how it can be a lot less intrusive and a lot less negative because you don't have time for nearly as much of it.
Yeah.
And another thing too is it's okay to I think it's okay to like knock yourself down here and there. I think it's okay to have a little bit of negative self-talk, but you can't ever hit a downed opponent. So you can say to yourself, oh man, that's the third night in a row of drinking. Like, dude, you know what? You need to, but you don't need to call yourself a loser. You don't need to say, hey man, you're a bag of shit. Like, why are you doing that? Say it once and try to make a change and work on that habit interruption. But I think all of us, everybody, doesn't matter how successful you are. We all need to podcast with ourselves. You need to interview yourself. And we are doing that, but I don't think we're giving ourselves good enough answers. And I don't think we're asking good enough questions because we're going to avoid the tough questions. Every time, the opportunity comes to lean a little bit towards our monkey brain of going towards satisfaction, going towards sex, pornography, drugs, any of these things, you're like, yup, yep. And it's like, no, man, like just, yes, sometimes, okay, I get it. We all have urges, but you need to be able to get done what you want to get done in this world. And the fact that you play music is great because there's a great saying that I'm sure came from somebody else, but I heard it from Les Brown. I don't want to die with a lot of music in my heart. And that's why I get out a lot of these inventions. That's why I still have a lot more creations that I have with my company, because I don't want to be, a graveyard is a graveyard of ideas that people never fulfilled, hopes and dreams. They're all just buried right there, as morbid as that is, all just buried right there with all those people. And because they never set them out into the world. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get them set out in the world, but I think it's definitely worth pursuing. So
with the spirit of how you do one thing is how you do everything. And again, I'm personalizing saying this largely based on my own experience. Like I said, I know what a superior human I am when I'm on point with my fitness relative to when I'm not. So therefore I know that probably the most important thing I can do in my life, and my wife would tell you the same thing. She'd be like, I'm not even sure I want to be married to like fat, unhealthy Jeff. Like I like the version of him that takes care of himself. I know that the most important thing I can honestly probably do in my life is be consistent about that part of my life. Most people instinctively know that they would be a much better version of themselves if they were consistent about that part of their lives, right? I mean, you work with fitness more than I do, but I mean, do you ever get people that are like fighting you on the idea that it would be good for them? I doubt it. Right?
No. Everybody understands that consistency is the key, but they're trying to look for a magic pill that helps in consistency. And I think the one thing that makes consistency so difficult is that you are going to have times that you don't want to do it. And then you have to kind of make a decision. But what I've learned, what's been really useful to me is try to break things down into smaller jobs. I think it was Henry Ford who said there's no job that's too hard or too great when it's broken down into simpler parts. So if you break things down, I mean, he created the assembly line. Yes, right. Building a car sounds overwhelming. But if I said, Jeff, hey, you're responsible for the nuts and bolts that go in the tire, you'd be like, okay, fucking easy. Right. Sounds simple enough, right? So I think that is a key component. I'm glad you brought that up, is having some simplicity to stuff. For me, when it comes to the gym, I'm always like, just go in there and do one body part. It's my brain's going back and forth. The other side of me saying, you trained yesterday, you trained the day before, you've been training like a savage, things have been going good, you've been good with your diet, you've been good with this, you've been good with that. But then the other side is saying, just just go in there and do one. Just go do shoulders. How hard is it to do shoulders?
Right.
Just quit complaining, you big baby. Yeah, I know it's 110 degrees outside here in Sacramento, and my gym is very, very hot this time of year. But just convince yourself of the one thing. And a lot of times I don't go in there and usually just do one body part, or I don't only do three. Sometimes I'll say I'll just do 3 or 4 sets of something. There's no way I would waste my time going into the gym only doing 3 or 4 sets of something. I'm already there. Might as well do like 8 or 9 sets and get a real stimulus from it and get a full workout in. So that 10 minutes, that time that you convince yourself to go do something for 10 or 12 minutes, you'll probably end up doing it for 30 or 45 minutes.
Yeah. So that was my question, is like, given that we all agree that this is one thing that we have 100% control over, by the way, that's another thing. There's no circumstantial block to like being active. And we all agree it would be better off if we did it. Trying to pinpoint why. I mean, it's an epidemic of people not doing it. It's like willful self-destruction. From your vantage point, what is the thing stopping so many people from doing this hugely obvious thing that would better their lives?
I think that maybe in their own mind, they have set up too many roadblocks. And sometimes they may look at someone like yourself, or they may look at me, or they may look at somebody that looks amazing, like a Michael Hearn, and they might think, that's not for me. I'll never look that way. I'm not a fitness guy. I'm not a bikini girl or whatever. I'm not, they set up some barriers for themselves. And usually the first barrier kind of starts with intimidation of, I'll never be built like some of those people. I'll never be strong like some of those people. I don't have time for that, is another one that you hear. But people tend to set up these barriers and these roadblocks. But I think that a really healthy thing to think about is that in order to exercise, and to exercise frequently, you don't necessarily need to work out. I think that would be a great revelation for a lot of people to come to. Exercise, just move. So if I said, hey, did you work out today? You'd be like, nah, man, I didn't get an opportunity to. But if I said, hey, did you exercise today? You would say, actually, I took a couple of calls today, and I think I probably walked, like, oh, let me check my phone. Oh yeah, I walked 20,000 steps. Like, I got some exercise in. Or I went somewhere with my kids, or I took them to the park, or I did, I played a little baseball today, or something like that. So I think let's not try to make working out any harder than it needs to be, and exercising any harder than it needs to be. Find something, and maybe find something nostalgic. Maybe when you were a kid, maybe you're in your 40s, maybe you're in your 50s, and maybe when you were a kid, you used to love to ride your bike. Maybe revisit that again. Go buy a nice bike, go get a helmet, go start cruising around. My dad is 72 on Tuesday. He's like, every morning he sends me a text, rode 12 miles today, rode 10 miles today, 15 miles today. He sends me pictures. He's all hyped up. He's all excited. And he's somebody that nearly died 4 times. He's been through a lot from a health standpoint many, many times over in his life. But, I got him into walking a couple years back, and it just started with he and I walking around the block, and he could barely make it. We had to stop a bunch of times, when we would walk around the block. But then it got to the point where he could do the whole block. And then it got to the point where he was walking miles. And now he's riding his bike all over the place. So anyone can do it. I think it's very hard though, because people hear that they should do it, and people know that they could do it. But to me, shoulds, woulds, and coulds, they're all acts of coercion. And I think that anytime that you force yourself to do stuff, not anytime you force yourself to do stuff, but anytime you are forcing yourself to do stuff for external reasons that aren't your own, I think you run into a problem. And I think that's where a lot of unhappiness can come from. So just make sure that it's your own. Like, make sure it's your own. What do you want? What would you like? If maybe you don't really care to be like fit and look like a CrossFitter, but maybe you dropping 10 pounds would help you to be healthier, and maybe you can chase after your kids a little bit better. Maybe you can get out of your car a little bit easier. Maybe you can get up and down stairs without pain in your knees, or without breathing hard, or some of these things. Have your own goals for your own reasons. Don't worry about trying to, do some cool selfie on IG or whatever it is.
Right.
Make sure it's your own shit and that you feel really good about it.
Yeah. You had a quote on speaking of Instagram, it was on your Instagram, ironically, where if I remember it right, it said something like, if there was a drug that had the same side effects as social media, the FDA would pull it. Like it would be banned, It's like the psychological destruction of social media. So yes, I agree. Don't make that your reason for anything, certainly fitness or otherwise, trying to impress anyone. But I'll tell you why I asked the question, because, as an entrepreneurial educator and coach, I feel like a very similar phenomenon of people saying, I know I want to do this thing. I know my life would be better if I started my side hustle, or if I started my blog, or I gave voice or life to this thing that's been inside me for a long time, or just created, an off-ramp of hope from my job that I hate, like whatever. And yet they don't do it. And so I was asking the question to answer the same question for myself. Like, why don't people do it? And I think you really nailed it. There's a real black and white perspective of like, I'm either all in doing it perfectly, or I can't do it and I'll just do it tomorrow. And I mean, I remember my first piano instructor used to tell me that he was flying somewhere and he would say something. I remember he just said this to me. I don't remember the exact context, but he's like, I'm going to practice on the plane. And I was like, there's a piano on the plane? And he says, no, I take my music and I practice in my mind while I'm on the plane. And it hit me like, yeah, that was when I was young. It made an impression. You just do what you can with what you have based on what's important to you. And in that sense, somebody could entrepreneur 5 minutes a day, right? It doesn't mean they have to have their 3 monitors set up and their perfectly quiet home office, and the kid, the babysitter takes the kids out so that they can focus and, you just do what you can with what you have. And I think that's, doing that consistently over time is kind of the recipe. Fitness, business, marriage, don't have a lot of money, light a candle and eat ramen on the floor. Like, just do what you can with what you have, right?
Yeah. I also think that having something to prove sometimes is important. And this is where you get into some really weird philosophical things, but being a person that bought a story that I was dumb and I attached myself to that, then I also thought, hey, no one thinks you can do it, and that wasn't really, that's not reality. I mean, you hear when a team wins a Super Bowl every year, they're like, nobody thought we can do it. And it's like, why wouldn't anybody think you can do it? You're a professional football team. You're one of 30 teams, and
right.
You got just as much chance as the next, and you have Tom Brady on your team or whatever it is, But I think sometimes that narrative in your head of no one thinks I can do it, but I'm gonna show them some of that stuff sometimes. And it's not a great motivating factor for long term. I don't think it's a great route to go, but it did work pretty well for Michael Jordan. But sometimes a little bit of that, like, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to stick it to you. You think I'm dumb, I'm going to kind of shove this back in your face type of thing. I think it can help. I think it can at least help with a little bit of a spark, and it can help. But I would just caution against getting too caught up in that, because you're never going to be happy. Every time you have something, you're going to feel like you need something else. And still, at any moment, someone can still say that you're an idiot or still say that you're dumb. And you didn't necessarily solve the problem of not worrying about what somebody else thinks of you in the first place, So, but I do think that that is something that separates out one person that actually does it, is they feel like they have something to prove, and it's really not to other people. That's kind of the trick of it. I think it's really to yourself.
Yeah, I feel you. I know that when I started online, I joined this affiliate marketing program, and I didn't know it at the time, but I found out later there were about 40,000 members in this program. I knew there were thousands. I just didn't know what the actual number was. And I remember I had this debt that I had to try to pay off because I lost the restaurant. It was my whole story. But long story short, I had to make the amount of money that the top 5 people in that program were making, or else I would not be able to pay off the debt. I had the government coming after me, the IRS, the bank, the lawyers. Like it was all or nothing. It was either I'm in the top 5 or I might as well not even bother. And, you know, there were 40,000 people in the program and which but it was this attitude of like, everybody thinks I'm screwed right now. And there's really no good objective evidence to support that I'm not. But what will it mean to the rest of my life if I can pull this off? You know? And to me, that sounds like you with the shirt. And by the way, one thing I have to say, one little detail of your story that I don't want to gloss over is the moment when you walked in the gym and you gave, and I've totally done this before, you give the guy the wave. Like, oh yeah, hey, just going to lift, you know, like I belong. And I say all the time, like if you act like you belong, people assume you do, right? But there's a little bit of that, like, you know, fake it till you make it, be it till you see it, like confidence, swagger a little bit. That, you know, think about it. Your whole thing could have been derailed if they'd stopped you right there.
If I was apprehensive. If I was apprehensive
like, well,
or didn't
I can't go test it out because I'm not a member of that gym. Your entire life story could have been different. You know?
No, 100%. And I think whatever your reality is, it's very real to you. You know, the kid that drops his ice cream cone and he's crying, you know, and you're just thinking, well, I have an extra couple bucks in my pocket to buy you a new one. You know, for that moment, that's like, that's reality. That kid is his, you know, the top of his ice cream cone fell on the ground. You know, he gets super, super upset. So your perception of things is reality. And even weirder than that is each person has a different perception of who you are, and you have a different perception of who you are. So there's only, you know, there's multiple copies. You know, people talk about like a multiverse and things can get really weird with stuff like that. But there already is a multiverse because there's thousands of different versions of you. Each person that hears you has a different interpretation of what you mean when you say it and when they take notes about it and when they think back about it. So, and some people are going to be like, man, I really loved when he said this. And somebody else is not even going to realize that you said that. You know, your wife's perception of you, your kid's perception of you, my perception of it. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But I do think it is important that you do act like you belong. You know, I've always felt very fortunate, and I always felt very wealthy. And I would say that I always felt very rich, even without the money, even when I've had times in my life where I was really broke, you know, where would go to my bank account and it would say insufficient funds, or it'd be like minus $27, you know, because I overdraft fees or whatever. Right. And me and my wife and I almost lost our house years ago. And today we actually just got a text just now. We just bought our 5th home. We bought a house in South Lake Tahoe. So, you know, your shit can turn around, you know, your shit can turn around. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take, it could take years. It could take decades. It could take a really long time for you to be able to turn it around. But I think that if you behave as if you deserve it, then you'll be it. You will get it. You will receive it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you're acting as if you know it's coming your way, you know, and I always kind of felt that. I don't think I had an arrogance about me for that, but you know, maybe somebody else thinks that of me, but I just felt like I could figure it out. I remember from the time I was a kid, I was always very fascinated with money. And I remember I would tell my dad, I was like, I'm going to live in a castle one day. You know, my dad's a real estate agent. So, you know, I'd tell him that and he would laugh, but he would play into it. He would be like, oh, that's awesome. You know, like, he's like, how big is it going to be? Or, is it going to have a moat? Like rather than him telling me you can't do it, he'd be like, is there going to be like alligators in the moat or something like that? And so, I think dreaming big and kind of acting as if you've been there before, I think is all definitely part of it.
Well, I think especially as parents, there's a lesson in what you just said about how your dad responded to you. Well, listen, I hate to even say it, but unfortunately, I think we're both out of time. I know I am. I shouldn't speak for you. I got to end this, but I feel like lessons from the school of iron, man. Like, there's just something so. It sounds so dorky, but there's like something so spiritual about just pushing really heavy shit against gravity. Like, and I'm jealous, man. I'll never lift 1,000 pounds of anything, but I'm jealous, man.
Well, and the people that are listening, it could be any other form of resistance. They could be doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu or martial art, or just, going on a bike, climbing a rock, or just any of it. I mean, I think just get out there and challenge yourself physically, mentally, a little bit of challenge every single day in your life. It should definitely be something that you're looking for. Amen.
So how can people enroll in your world if they want more of this epicness, or if they want to buy something from you? Tell us both of those options for people.
Yeah, I have a website. It's called markbell.com, and that has a lot of fitness information on me. It shows my current workouts, shows some of my philosophy as well. And then also I have a YouTube channel, which is Mark Smelly Bell. And the YouTube channel is kind of the same deal. You'll see some of my workouts. You'll see some of the entrepreneurial stuff that we talked about here today. I talk a lot about diet. I talk a lot about philosophy. And in addition to that, if you want to go buy some stuff, you can go check out markbellslingshot.com. Thanks so much, man. This is really great. And it's fun to get on podcasts like this. And it's fun to hear you mention how I've been relatable to you in terms of previous guests that you had, because I find that to be very true on my own podcast, where somebody says something and I'm like, 2 weeks ago, somebody said like pretty much the same thing. You keep hearing the same themes, and probably the reasons why we're attracted to each other in the first place, because we're like-minded and we have some confirmation bias going on here. But
right.
It is awesome to kind of be, part of this circle of just seems like tons of positivity being spit out. And I hope your viewers and listeners enjoyed it and got something from it today.
Yeah. Amen. I couldn't agree more. And I have found, I've done, I don't know, this is probably episode 75 or 80. My show is only a few months old, but when they say success leaves clues, I mean, they're not kidding. Like, the themes are always the same. It's like Hollywood movies. There's really only like 7 movies. I read some book one time about the art of storytelling. There's only like 7 stories, and you just change the characters and the settings and all this stuff. That's there's like only a few variations on success. And the gym, lifting, piano playing, business, I don't know, elite athletic, elite anything. It's all, I just assume it, racing cars. I'm sure if I can ever get, an elite NASCAR driver on my show, I guarantee you it'll all be like 90% of it will all be the same. It's like the genetic code between chimpanzees and humans. There's all this tiny little variation. Anyway, thank you so much, man. This has been tremendous. I want to let the audience know we actually put a little special gift together in recognition of Mark showing up for us. This is like I said, I've been fan geeking this whole time. If you go to millionairesecrets.com/Mark B, you can download a free copy of our book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which teaches you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new digital economy, and frankly builds on a lot of the principles that we've just expounded here. It's a quick read. Make sure you grab that. And Mark, I just want to say thanks again for being a guest on Millionaire Secrets. This has been great.
I appreciate it. My gym is free. It's Super Training Gym. Just come and look us up on Saturday and Sunday from 9 o'clock until 1. It's in West Sacramento, California. Come train with us at some point. Just any of your listeners that are listening to this, all that we require is just that you just please shoot us an Instagram message. And that's the Super Training Gym on Instagram, just so we know that you're coming, because sometimes we have kind of a lot of people, and also you'll have to wait until this whole thing of COVID blows over here in California, which might be forever. So who knows?
No, I think that's super cool. I hope everyone heard that. It's a free gym. Those aren't free. Two words you usually hear paired together. So I think that's amazing, man. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah, and thanks to the audience out there. Appreciate you always. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.